Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special Hippo Help webinar titled Hippo Mobile for Work Order Requests. My name is Earl Mina, and I work with the training and technical support team. Here is a look at today's agenda. We'll go through a brief introduction about work order requests. Then we will go into a work order request tutorial, looking at the requester page, the work order request panel, and then on to demand work orders. This is all mobile based, so we'll be using an iPod Touch as a demo today. And then we will have a question and answer period at the end of the webinar. Today's webinar will be very short. I only expect to keep you here up until about 10:30 or so. All attendees will be muted, but during our question and answer period, feel free to bring up any questions you may have. And this session will also be recorded and sent out to all attendees later today. So just a quick introduction to Hippo Mobile. We have recently released the brand new Hippo version 6. On the left side, we can see Hippo version 5 mobile. We've actually redesigned Hippo version 6 mobile with a bunch of new features. These new features include equipment management, parts management. We've completely redesigned the interface, so it's a much more pleasant and easy to use mobile experience. Now, this update is free for all version 5 users. If you are interested in updating to Hippo version 6, on your version 5 login page, there's a link to a short webinar that'll explain to you some of the new features, the update process for Hippo version 6, and then you can also register for a time period when you do want to change over to a new system. So let's take a look at the work order process. There are a couple of steps that we'll look at from the beginning of a request going over to a demand work order. So this is an overview of how requesters work in the Hippo system. It's best to think of requests as halfway to demand work orders. They don't become actual tickets into your Hippo system until there is someone who approves or rejects it. For example, if you work in the hospitality industry, if you own restaurants or hotels, and you have thousands of users, instead of creating a login for every single one of those users, you can set up a requester type system. This requester type system is quite simple. Your users will have access to their own unique work order request form. For those of you familiar with the demand work order, you'll notice that this request form does not have as many fields to fill out. It's quite simple. After this request has been submitted, it's next onto a process where someone else from your company will approve or reject that work order request. If you reject the request, it will disappear, won't be part of your history. If you choose to approve it, your final step would be to submit it as a demand work order. Now, the images you see on here are from desktop, but we will be looking at how to manage your work order requests right from your mobile device. Now, in terms of permissions for your requester user, and this must be set up on desktop, there's 3 pages that you need to look at. When editing a user, on the enterprise screen, in the general tab, please give your requester these following permissions. We'll give them mobile enabled, which will allow them to send requests on their mobile device. We'll also enable requester history. This is useful if you just want to backtrack on any requests that you had. User enabled, that'll allow your user to work with the Hippo program. And then web requester. This is the permission that will allow your user to log into that unique requester screen. If you're an admin for your company, or if you have people that want to sign into the actual Hippo database, please do not assign this web requester permission, as they will be directed to a page where they should not be. On the Facility General tab, Just a couple permissions that we'll assign. First is enable login. Under work orders, we'll give them submit demand work order. Now, although that says demand work order, it is indeed submit request. Again, this is because we have selected web requester as a permission. And then if you scroll further down on that facility general tab, you can also subscribe your requester to email status updates. In order to do that, you must check mark these two first boxes, all demand work orders and own demand work orders only, and then check mark work order status updates. What that will do for your requester is it'll allow them to get updates on their specific request if it has been approved. For example, I request maintenance for a broken light. That goes to the maintenance team, they approve it. Maintenance team will then begin the work order, change the status from not started to in progress. I'll get an email back to let me know that the light bulb is currently in progress. And then ultimately in the end, when it's completed, I can also get an email. So this section is for email status updates for your requesters. So that's the requester user. Now there must be someone on the other end that will approve or reject those work order requests. This can be a maintenance supervisor, it can be a facility administrator, someone who has likely more permissions than your average standard Hippo user. Now when you're editing permissions for this type of user, we also want to give them mobile enabled, and they will need user enabled as well too. On the Facility General tab, please make sure you have Submit Demand Work Order checkmarked, and the permission to manage the work order requests is down here. It's simply called Manage WO Requests. Anyone who has this field checkmarked will be allowed to approve or reject the requests that come into your facility. So let's take a look at the requester form. Again, we're looking at Hippo Mobile. So for those of you that have your mobile with you today, you can follow along here. You will type in your mobile address into the address bar. This usually goes with your client ID at the beginning. Ours is Hippo Demo, and then .hippocmms.ca or hippocmms.com. Now, just like another user, your requester will log in with their user ID and then their password. We'll click Secure Login, and this will take us to that work order request form. Now, this form is very simple. It's not meant to be overly complicated for your requesters. The idea here is that they're submitting maintenance requests and don't have to worry about any further information. Now, follow along with the fields. We have requested by, and what I've done on my users grid, I've actually modified the first name and last name. So how this appears, first name I entered was enter and the last name was full name on the users grid. So for people who are sharing the single login, it will give them an idea that you need to type your name in. Under contact information, you can choose to put a phone number or an email. However, only emails will be sent those status updates. So I encourage you to train your requesters to type in an email into this field. Next field is the description. So it helps if your requester is descriptive of the type of maintenance that needs to be done. So we can say the computer is rebooting unexpectedly. Next dropdown is facility. So if you have one facility or if you have multiple, they will appear in this dropdown list here. We're going to go ahead and pick the Hippo plant. Floor plan is what floor is this issue located. This is my sanding door shop floor, and then you would have your locations within that floor plan. So we'll call this the R&D. You can also choose to turn on priority levels. This is not on by default, but if you want to allow your requester to set a priority level, this is a feature that can be turned on in your global settings. We'll call this medium. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that your requester only has the ability to select locations. They don't have the option for equipment or vehicle. So again, if they want to request maintenance for a specific piece of equipment, they should type it in to the description field. So I'll click submit. You'll get a message saying your request has been submitted and is pending review. We can either sign out or finished or submit another request. I'll click the green button to reload. We looked at a permission earlier called work order request history. So that's what this gray button is down here. If I click history, this will give me a running history of all the requests that were submitted under that single login. So where this might be useful for you, if you have users who are sharing a single requester login, and maybe the morning person put the request in, but the evening person wasn't sure if that actually happened or not, they can click the request button, history, and then they can take a look at what time this request was submitted. We can see what the current status is, who submitted it, and what location. This is a complete history per this login, and this is something that you can export to PDF, CSV, print out as well too. So what we'll do next, we're going to sign out. Then we have to move on to the user who is going to be approving or rejecting that work order request. We'll sign in with our user ID. Now, assume that I am a maintenance supervisor. I'm managing these requests. This is my enterprise summary of all my facilities. This is a button over here that you can choose between showing just work orders you're assigned to or showing all work orders. I'm going to switch that to all. And as you can see, these numbers have actually changed. I've got a lot of work orders in my facility. That's not our main priority today. Our main priority is learning how to manage our work order requests. So the menu button in the top left corner has panels of all the features in Hippo Mobile. We're going to look at the second option, work order requests. Now when we click on this panel, because this tab says all, this is showing us all the work order requests amongst my enterprise. I've got 7 different buildings. This is spread out through all 7 buildings. Instead, what I can do, I can click the drop-down menu and maybe look at just the maintenance requests per specific facility. I'll select Hippo Plant, and instead of seeing the 6 of them, I just have 3 results. Down at the bottom, I can see my request for the computer rebooting unexpectedly. The option here is to click the red button. The red button will just reject the request, or I can click the green button to follow the steps to move this into a demand work order, that is approving that maintenance request. I can click the green button, and it doesn't mean that I've actually submitted it as a demand work order. I do have to go through this form and then click the save button. So this will give you an opportunity to quickly look at the information. So where is the issue? What is the description? And then if you approve, you can complete the rest of the fields and then submit it as a demand work order. So we're at the stage now where we're going to actually approve it. We want this to be a demand work order, a ticket within our system. So just like on desktop, we are going to follow the same steps. There are only a few mandatory fields. First one is work order name. This is what needs to be done. I will type in fix the computer. Again, we're being very straightforward. When I assign this to my maintenance technician, he needs to know very quickly what kind of job that he's going to do. It already captured the facility, Hippo plant, and because the requester had selected the location, I don't have to complete that. However, I mentioned before, if this is actually equipment based, you do have the option of going ahead and switching the type. If I had a computer within my equipment here, I could select that from my list. So we'll just say it's we'll pick this one instead. I can proceed by taking other things, so I am going to consider this critical. I want this job to be completed today. Now this overrides the medium button. My take for critical is finish the work order within 0 days, so same day work. I can add a work category. I can add any vendors. I can assign this. So we'll have my resource Amanda fix that computer. The due date, again, we need this done immediately. And then description. This was the last mandatory field. I like this description from my requester, so I'm not going to add anything to it, but feel free to delete or add anything to your needs. Down below, we see requested by. Because our requester had typed in their name, this will give me a good idea of who I'm going to contact. In addition, they've also left their email. So it's very important that you train your requesters to leave their name and their email if you want to know who sent it and if they want to get some feedback on the maintenance that is being done. Lastly, I can add other email contacts. If there is a person that isn't part of your database, but you need to reach out to them regarding this issue. So let's say I need to add Joe at cncmachine.com. So now he's also someone I want to send an email and status updates to. You can also add photos. So if you have a picture, we'll launch your camera, take a picture of the issue or the broken machine. We'll click OK. And then from there, I click Save. And if I go back into my main menu in the top left corner, look at work order requests, you'll notice that I only have 2 now. My request has been approved. And then by clicking the icon in the top middle, we can go back to the enterprise summary. I'm only on the view own view. We'll go into Hippo plant. There's that request. And as you can see, it is now a demand work order awaiting one of your technicians to complete it. All right, so before we move into our question and answer period, I just want to review the things that we covered today. So we looked at how to create a requester user. We'll backtrack here. So requester user will have the following permissions. Please give them mobile enabled, requester history, web requester, user enabled. Give them login, submit demand work order, and then for email status updates, work order status updates, and all plus own demand work orders. For whoever is managing those requests, they must have manage work order request permission. That's under facility general, and mobile enabled if they want to use mobile. This is the work order request form. Again, if we log in as our requester, They'll have a very simple form to fill out. And if you are the maintenance supervisor or someone who's going to be approving these requests, when you log into the program, click on the menu button in the top left corner, click on work order requests, and then you can approve or reject any requests that come in. All right, so we have about just under 10 minutes left. This is a very, very quick webinar, so I'd like to open up the floor for any questions. If there's anything that comes up later that wasn't asked today, feel free to email us at support@hippocmms.com. But please use your question panel in your GoToMeeting, and then I will answer anything that comes up. So we do have one question. Question is, can I set up mobile to have a maintenance technician use mobile to send meter readings to a work order? If you are referring to the meter reading column, and we'll just sign into the Hippo database here. For anyone doing meter-based PMs, that value gets updated on the equipment grid. There is a column called meter reading, and it's this column that gets updated that will generate a brand new preventative maintenance. If you are interested in learning how to make meter-based PMs, you can register for Hippo Express Training 2, which is every Wednesday. There are some spots for tomorrow. But continuing on, if we look at the equipment panel on mobile, so I've clicked the menu icon and equipment. We'll do a comparison here of what fields appear. We'll select this piece of equipment. We'll click the edit button, details, and click the green button. Now, because Hippo Mobile is very, very simple and more compact than the desktop, um, you don't get all the fields as you would on desktop. So fortunately, the meter reading column does not appear on mobile. So if you want someone to update the meter reading, they will always have to go back to the desktop. What I would suggest, you can make that as a suggested feature for Hippo. So along with any support questions you might have regarding the program, in the feedback panel, you can actually suggest new features of things that you would like to see. We like to hear the suggestions from our customers. They help us develop new and useful features for our program. So feel free to send in any suggestions that you may have. In addition, if there's a special webinar that you would like to see, please send in your suggestion here. We'd like to cater to our audience. Okay, so I think I will wrap it up here. Just a reminder, we do have Express Training 1 later today. So if you're interested in learning the basics of the Hippo software, please attend there. We do have Express Training 2 tomorrow. So if you're interested in learning about PMs, reports, that would be a very good webinar for you to attend. I have this webinar recorded and I'll be sharing this as a copy with everyone today. But thank you all for attending and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Take care.